Good evening, folks, and happy Banned Books Week. Woo! My name is Jim Curry, and I'm a youth and teen librarian here at the Fayetteville Public Library, and I'd like to thank you for joining us in our celebration of our freedom to read. As a library, our mission is to strengthen our community and empower its citizens through free and public access to knowledge. We as librarians are proud to recognize Banned Books Week here in Fayetteville and to introduce the Banned Books Artist Project this year. Since 1982, Banned Books Week has been recognized each year by the book community being librarians, teachers, publishers, journalists, and a lot more. To celebrate our First Amendment rights to the freedom of the press, and to emphasize the growing number of bans and challenges works of literature we're acquiring. Fayetteville's no stranger to books under fire. In 2005, a parent condemned some 50-plus titles in the Fayetteville Public Schools libraries to the then superintendent and the media, but only made 2 formal challenges. These books remained on the shelves thanks to district policies, community support, and the steadfast work of school librarians such as Cassandra Barnett. Fast forward to 2021, when over 1,500 bans and challenges occurred across the country, setting the record in the 20 years that they started tracking. Librarians continue to wrongly be labeled as groomers, pedophiles, and pornographers for sharing works addressing a diversity of content and experiences. And it's not just books. Library programs, meeting rooms, databases, social media, and so much more are under pressure as well. I'm sorry to say that Fayetteville Public Library, including this very gathering tonight, is not exempt from receiving such criticisms. Some numbers just came in over the weekend, revealing over 600 reported bans and challenges this year alone. as a youth department, we work hard to put the right books in the hands of kids. If we know a book to have more mature content, we encourage caregivers to give it a read before they put it in the hands of their child, to make that decision whether it's good for their child to read or not, if that caregiver is present. Caregivers do have the right to what their child does or does not read. It's when an individual or an entity tries to control what everyone else can or cannot read that we encounter these issues of intellectual freedom. In our opinion, everyone has their book. Read the book before you make your judgment. Which brings us here tonight. Inspired by Chapel Hill Public Library in North Carolina, the Banned Books Artist Project was introduced this year. A call for community artists was put out this summer for 2D interpretations of books or authors that have been banned or challenged. We're so grateful for the response of the artist community of Northwest Arkansas. A selection committee of librarians, library staff, the art committee of Fayetteville Public Library was assembled, and we painstakingly narrowed it down to the 5 winners tonight. We wish we could make them all winners. These works will hang in our library through late October, and we've made them into trading card packs, which you can pick up after this program too. And now for our winners. Where the Wild Things Are. We'll start with a picture book. Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak was published in 1963 and won the Caldecott Medal in 1964. This classic picture book tells the story of Max and his becoming king of all the wild things. In 1969, child psychologist Bruno Bettelheim would write in the Ladies' Home Journal that Where the Wild Things Are was psychologically damaging to children for its darkness and monsters. Bruno would later admit that he never read the book. From our first artist, this trading card portrays that pivotal point in the book where Max earns the title King of All the Wild Things by staring into their eyes without blinking. I think this moment is about self-regulation and self-coronation. It's a powerfully wise and fun book. We couldn't agree more. Please give a round of applause for our first winning artist and their celebration of Where the Wild Things Are, Rebecca Birchfield McCleary. Thank you, Rebecca. I think all of our artists are here tonight. Did I see Mila come in? Yeah, hi. Yeah, all of our artists are here tonight, so they'll join us in the reception after if you would like to meet the artists after. Thank you again, Rebecca. Congratulations. This was our first submission, and this was coming into the point of the project where we didn't know if we were going to get submissions from artists or not. So when this came in, we took a deep sigh of relief and said, this is setting the bar very high. Published at the turn of the 20th century, Chopin's The Awakening remains an important work of feminist literature. But in 1899, a female protagonist who sets out on her own and makes adult choices regarding her body was deemed immoral and scandalous by many. It should be several decades before Chopin would be applauded for her awareness of the complexities of truth and the complications of freedom. From our next artist, this piece reflects the struggle and confinement felt by the main character, Edna Pontellier, in Kate Chopin's novel. The imagery of birds and water are prevalent throughout the novel as Edna explores herself and challenges her conventional role of wife and mother in the late 19th century South. Please join us in celebrating The Awakening and congratulating artist Patrick Brown. Thank you very much, Patrick. Each year, the Banned Books the National Organization of Banned Books Week will put out a theme, and this year the theme happened to be birds and bird cages, so when we saw this, it met the national theme quite well, and what a great choice of book for this project. Thank you, Patrick. Orwell's dystopian 1984, published in 1949, and has become the gold standard for depictions of intrusive government and oppressive bureaucracy. But it would be claims of pro-communism and sexual explicitness that would put 1984 on the challenged books lists, joining Orwell's earlier work of Animal Farm. 1984 is also the subject of our next winning piece. From the artist, to visualize Orwell's pitch-black satirical glimpse of a dystopian future, simplified geometric elements inspired by propaganda imagery are used to depict the all-consuming, all-seeing gaze of Big Brother and the desperate futility to escape it. To speak more on their submission, please welcome to the stage winning artist Bryson Taylor.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming out. What a great experience, and what better way to celebrate Banned Book Week. 1984 by George Orwell. 1984 has a reputation that precedes itself. Many ideas and speech that we have in commonplace in our modern day culture and vernacular pop up a lot from this book. Phrases such as "Big Brother is watching" has become synonymous with the idea of mass observation from government. Other phrases like doublethink, thought police, thought crime, and newspeak all came from this book, and they're things that we can hear used often today. Even some other phrases that have become buzzwords, such as alternative facts and fake news, derived from some of these terms, and I think would fit well inside George Orwell's dystopian future. With such a reputation, I think it's very easy to have exposure to movies and books that tend to speak for themselves. For example, I grew up knowing a lot about Jaws, but didn't watch it until a couple of years ago. And everyone knows the motifs, everyone knows the shark, everyone knows the music. But it wasn't until I watched the movie for myself that I realized how good it was. And I was like, do people know how good Jaws is? It's really good. And that's what classics do. They make you realize how good they are, and that's why they're a classic, is for their reputation precedes them, but they're still worth checking out. And so even if you had asked me what a banned book was, I probably would have named 1984 before I'd even read it. But in the last couple of years, I've been pushing myself to kind of explore more of these classic bits of literature, and I'd actually been reading 1984 before this event was announced. So I continued to read the book, but with the object in mind of how to visualize it. What's the tone, what's the atmosphere, what's the message it's trying to share, and how do I visualize that? I'm a visual learner, and as an artist, that's something that I personalize myself is through imagery. So while I was finishing up the book, I would do sketches, thumbnail sketches, and conceptualize things. And it turns out the book is worth reading. Who knew? It's a classic for a reason. And originally I had a detailed illustration in mind, some different concepts I really wanted to put down, but I usually tend to be detailed in my artwork and very illustrative. And the more I thought about this book, and once I finished it, I realized I really kept gravitating towards some of my earlier sketches that were just very simplified, just blocked out shapes, and really focused on the contrast of light and dark. Really pulling inspiration from the idea of being constantly observed, the futility to escape, and the inevitability of being caught. The book had a sense of the trap just slowly closing around you the more and more you read it. And there's glimpses of hope, and there's an idea of how maybe things will work out, but it's just the trap is slowly closing in this future where you can't escape. And there's rules, and they tell you what to do, and they tell you what to think, and there's no escaping that. So I wanted to capture that. I pulled a lot of influences from propaganda posters using rays and using that horizon line for that sense of direction and movement, but also pulled a lot of inspiration from Saul Bass and Paul Bacon, who are some artists who do really good work with simplistic human figures. And so I just wanted this distressed, aged sort of look, focusing on the strong geometric shape and the strong contrast of light and dark, and being caught in that all-seeing eye of Big Brother. So, did I enjoy the book? I don't know if enjoy is the word I would use. But is it important? It is. It's absolutely a must read. Uh, like Jim mentioned, 1984 was published in 1949, 35 years before its predicted dystopian future. And now it's been 38 years since 1984. And so 35 years from now, what does our future look like? The book was banned in the US for being pro-communist and entertaining socialist ideas, but for those who are even vaguely familiar with the book, it does not paint socialism in a kind light at all. But what's quite ironic is on the other side of the globe, the USSR also banned the book, but because it was anti-communist and not socialist enough, and entertained democratic ideas. So it's interesting how a book can be banned for being too much of one and too little of another. Orwell's pitch black satirical glimpse of a dystopian society is now set in our past, but his book still serves as a cautionary tale for our future and even our current events. In May of this year, 2022, the book was banned in Belarus, and copies of the book were confiscated from a bookstore in Minsk, which is the capital, and the publishers were detained. So we still very much live in a world that sounds like it's straight out of the pages and straight from George Orwell's desk. So even if you feel like you know them, it's still worth it to read the classics. Big Brother is watching. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bryson. Our penultimate banned book is Daniel Keyes' science fiction novel, Flowers for Algernon, in which protagonist Charlie gains immense intelligence from an experimental procedure intended to correct a learning disability. Charlie befriends a lab mouse named Algernon, which underwent the same procedure. Keyes' novel remained on the top 100 list of banned and challenged books throughout the 1990s for the reasons of language, adult themes, and sexual explicitness. Our local artist states, Charlie struggles to retain his intelligence and knowledge as it slips through his fingers. He and Algernon are trapped in a maze, unable to gain autonomy as a disabled person and a laboratory mouse, respectively. We celebrate Flowers for Algernon and congratulate winning artist Mila Karp. Thank you, Mila. We had multiple artists submit multiple entries for this project, and Mila submitted this entry in 2 different color palettes. So to make our choice even harder, we then had to choose which color palette of this submission we were going to go into. But I think we made a good choice. Thank you, Mila, for your hard work. Our final submission exemplifies that it's not just the classics that get banned and challenged. The 1619 Project, A New Origin Story, is a 2021 publication. It builds upon New York Times and Nicole Hannah-Jones' initiative to reframe American history with slavery at the forefront of the narrative. The collection of essays and the project itself have spawned podcasts, curriculum, film agreements, and protests. Hannah-Jones would win the Pulitzer Prize for her work on the project. Meanwhile, several states that work to pass or have passed laws limiting how teachers can discuss race in the classroom use this project in their arguments. Our final artist writes, 1619 represents the truth of a complicated history, and so I wanted to overlay a mix of sorrow and hope. The ocean, the white picket fence or railroad of American prosperity, and the Statue of Freedom, visited by a mourning dove, interlink as symbols of slavery's still present legacy. To celebrate the 1619 Project, A New Hope, and to congratulate our final artist, please welcome to the stage Obed Gonzalez.
Hello. Thank you so much for the Fayetteville Public Library for hosting this event. This is I'm typically a hermit, so this was a nice way to be able to come out and make art. Whenever I first learned about the project, and I was actually speaking to Patrick, a fellow alum of the University of the Ozarks art program. Uh, we were saying like, okay, what's banned? What's out there? And I'm a product of the Springdale Public Schools. I've been here since middle school, and uh, as I read to the list, I'm like, how is that banned? What? I read that. It was quite a shock to see so many core curriculum novels be now on these lists that were supposedly subversive um, or damaging in some way to whatever status quo was convenient for whoever was arguing that. And as I started to look at titles, one in particular came to mind, and that was, of course, the 1619 Project. To me, it represents a sort of the uncomfortable position where you have to accept that multiple things can be true, and it's always a difficult aspect of when you learn someone's past, and you have to reconcile that they've done bad things, but I also accept that we can do better and we can grow from that. Whenever I was trying to come up with the symbolism um, for the actual final piece, I wanted to convey the blue of the cover, and also take a lot of the symbolism that was being described. And it's very prominent in, I guess you could say, the Americana culture. The white picket fence is as much the railroads um, and the ocean, describing the passage uh, of the Atlantic as slaves would come in. And of course, one particular mention very early on in the book is the Statue of Freedom that sits atop the Capitol building in Washington. This beacon of freedom crafted by the hands of slaves. Uh, Again, that duality of something negative uh, of a past that should not be forgotten, uh, indeed learned from, so that we can do better. And then, of course, the little mourning dove, a nice little symbol of, of a little bit of sorrow. But in the background, there's still some birds flying away. There's still hope. There's still opportunity. And that's what I gleaned a lot from the book, that uh, there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you.
Thank you again, Obed. We are thrilled to recognize these artists and these works this Banned Books Week. We invite you all to join us at the pre-function space just outside the event center for a reception to take a closer look at the winning art. You can meet the artists, and we've got trading card packs, so please collect your trading cards that have all the winning works depicted on them. If you would like to learn more about Banned Books Week, we have curated a list of titles that have been banned and challenged in Fayetteville. That's just outside as well. You can visit bannedbooksweek.org for more information about what's happening nationally, or visit the website of the American Library Association Office of Intellectual Freedom. But first, before we conclude, please let's give one more round of applause to all of our winning artists. Rebecca, Patrick, Bryson, Mila, and Obed, thank you for making this project a reality this year. Happy Banned Books Week, and may you always celebrate your freedom to read. Thank you very much, folks. Have a good night.